The winds that blew across Dagorlad carried no birdsong, only ash, smoke, and the whisper of war long overdue. In the 34th century of the Second Age, the Great Plain stretched like a scar before the Black Gate of Mordor, dry and dead. Here, where the brown grass curled and withered underfoot, the armies of the last alliance gathered, their banners flapping like wings of fate. They came from lands spread across the map of Middle-earth, a force forged not by kinship but by purpose. At the head of them stood Gil-galad, High King of the Noldor, his armor gleaming silver, the spear Eglos in his grasp like a frozen star. At his side, Elendil the Tall, last of the lords of Andunia, towered in Númenórean steel. Behind them surged elves, men and dwarves, free peoples bound by one shared oath, the defeat of Sauron. From the west had marched the elves of Lindon, archers and swordsmen, veterans of wars older than memory. Born near the grey havens, their songs were of starlight and silence, but today their eyes burned with wrath. South of them came the wood elves of Lorien, cloaked in forest green, silent, swift, deadly. Unlike their highborn kin, they needed no fanfare, only room to draw blood. The dwarves of Khazad-dûm, seldom seen beyond their mountain gates, had emerged from under the misty mountains, armored in stone, dark iron, and bearing axes that shimmered with ancient runes. Gruff, proud but unshakable, they had offered no promise of loyalty, only a promise of vengeance. And then came the men of Númenor in exile, divided yet united. From Arnor in the north rode the grim-hearted warriors of Isildur, their dark cloaks fluttering over bright mail. From Gondor in the south, Anarion's legions arrived with siege engines and discipline. They were not many, but they were mighty, descendants of a drowned kingdom, standing now in exile, fueled by loss. Their enemy needed no beauty, no glory, only numbers and fear. The Orcs of Mordor spilled out of the broken lands like infection. They chanted in twisted tongues, banners of red and black rising like smoke. For every elf there were 10 orcs, for every dwarf 20. They came armed with crude blades, rusted armor, and hatred born in darkness. Behind them lumbered trolls, dragging hammers and chains, each a siege engine in flesh. In their wake marched the Easterlings, adorned in red lacquered armor, warriors of the East, drawn by promises of dominion. And from the burning south, the South Runs, Haradrim, roared into the field astride beasts from forgotten deserts, eyes wild with fire. Above it all, the shadow of Barad-dûr watched. The first arrow was loosed at dawn, a single shot from a Lindon scout, silent and swift. It struck an orc commander in the eye. He dropped shrieking, and the field erupted. From the front lines, elven archers unleashed volleys in perfect timing, arrows blotting out the rising sun. The orcs screamed but pressed forward. Their war drums pounded, a terrible rhythm that shook the earth. The charge met the alliance like a storm against stone. Gil-galad stood amidst his royal guard, wielding Eglos like wrath incarnate. Every strike left frost-kissed corpses in his wake. His voice carried over the chaos, shouting orders in the high tongue, pushing his lines forward. Beside him, Elendil fought like a tidal wave, his sword Narsil cleaving through meat and mail. To the left, the dwarves broke into a phalanx, shields locked, axes swinging with mechanical brutality. An orc warband tried to flank them, and was simply erased. Blood slicked the dirt where they stood, but the dwarves held. The center, where the armies of Gondor and Arnor met the tide, surged forward. Isildur, cloaked in black, fought with fury, unmatched. His brother Anarion held the standard of the White Tree high above the chaos. Together they led charges that pierced deep into the enemy's mass, leaving wreckage behind. But the dark had its own champions, a troll the size of a watchtower, smashed into the eastern flank, tossing elves aside like dolls. A group of Southrons, screaming war cries in guttural tones, surged toward the archers of Lorien. Dozens fell. The alliance buckled, but did not break. Gil-galad saw the breach and charged. With a dozen of Lindon's elite, he carved through. The horde like moonlight through fog. Eglos sang in his hand, every thrust freezing blood mid-air. And when the troll turned its hateful gaze upon him, Gil-galad met it head-on. The duel was short and fatal. The elf king drove his spear beneath its jaw, and the monster fell like a felled tree, shaking the battlefield. Cheers rang out, but none louder than from the dwarves who had seen it all. Still, the tide seemed endless. Every wave of orcs that fell was replaced by another. The skies turned black not from clouds, but from the smoke of blood and burning. For hours the field saw nothing but slaughter. Bodies piled high, men and orcs, elves and Easterlings. And yet the alliance did not falter. They rotated ranks, mended the wounded mid-battle, and pushed ever forward. They were not fighting for conquest, but for survival, for peace, for the future. When the sun dipped low, Sauron's armies began to waver. For all their numbers, their morale was fragile. The death of their commanders, the stubbornness of the dwarves, the ferocity of the elves, and the unwavering courage of men began to crack their resolve. Gil-galad raised his spear high. "Elendil!" Now, the Númenorian king charged, his sons at his side, and the alliance surged with him. The lines of Mordor buckled. The trolls, now fewer, turned and fled. The Southrons retreated into the smoke. Even the Orcs began to falter. When the final war horns of Mordor died in the air, silence fell like a curtain. The field was no longer a battlefield. It was a grave. Tens of thousands lay dead. Gil-galad's armor was dented and painted with soot. Elendil's sword was chipped. Isildur knelt beside a friend who no longer breathed, and yet they had won. The Battle of Dagorlad was over, but it was not the end. From the Black Gate, Sauron had not emerged. His forces had been broken, but not he. The victory was great, but the war, they knew, had only just begun.